when volatility was higher than it was last year. But again, you can see it's come down and is pretty similar now to where it was through most of the 90s and some other points in time. So U.S. stock market volatility really isn't all that high at the moment. In terms of just raw stock price performance, when I've talked about this in the past, I've often compared what we saw last year to the two prior crashes that would come to mind, so the October of '29 and the October of '87 crashes. And the real question was, which one of these paths were we going to follow? So were we going to look like '87, where it dropped and essentially started its march back up quite rapidly, quite dramatically? Or were we going to look at October of '29, where it came down and that was just the start of problems that were going to last for more than 10 years into the future? If you compare that to what we've seen over the last few years, so aligning the dates so that the crashes occur at about the same time, you can see what we saw was a more rapid, larger drop in, starting again, I think these are weeks, so you're starting in about early of 2008. The drop, I think we're talking about somewhere around 55 or 60% drop. That was larger than around either of those other two crashes. And at the moment, we've come back up a lot. So since its low, we're up about 50–55%. So again, that's the good news, looking more like, hopefully, the green line than the blue line. So the concern is obviously if you look at the stock market during the 1930s, there were lots of times when it went up pretty dramatically for 6 months or a year, and then reversed itself over the subsequent couple of years. So looking at this, it's a little bit hard to tell which one of these is more comparable. I've decided a better comparison, rather than looking at prior stock market crashes, is actually looking at stock price performance, stock market performance in prior recessions. So the ones that I think are most comparable in recent decades to the current recession is the recession of 1973 and the recession of 1981. Okay? Those were about the same magnitude of recession if you look at GDP changes, effects on unemployment, and things like that. Compared to that, again, the stock market drop we saw was at its low, was more dramatic than either of those two recessions. So stock prices did seem to come down more. If you wanted to have a hopeful message, to the extent that those recessions are comparable going forward, then after both of those recessions, stock prices actually bounced back pretty well over the subsequent few years. And so I think if I had to compare it to the crashes, I'm not sure are comparable. I don't think we're really comparable to the Depression. I don't think we're comparable to no recession of '87. I think those are probably better points of comparison, and I think that gives you a little bit of a hopeful sign that we've probably reached the bottom. But again, there's a lot of guesswork in that.
Thanks, John.